What's up? This is Richie here with your Saturday previews. We already got our weekday previews up and ready to go. Let's just jump into it. First, we got Louisville Cardinals and the Clemson Tigers. Louisville sucks. Clemson's pretty good. They have one of the best offense in the country, one of the best defensive lines in the country. Clemson should roll over them. I don't think Louisville's got a shot. Nebraska at Ohio State. This will be a pretty interesting game. Nebraska, man, they won 2 games, but they should have like 5 or at least 4, right? Their offense is actually really, really good. Ohio State, they have still in my mind a Heisman quarterback in Dwayne Haskins. Obviously they got the talent there at Ohio State, but Nebraska's got to go in Ohio State. If this were any other weekend, I would give Nebraska. I would probably pick them to upset them, but Ohio State's coming off a bye. They're pissed off because they lost the last game they played. Got killed by Purdue. So, that being said, I think Ohio State ends up winning with this, but Ohio State is a noon game. You're on upset alert. Syracuse playing Wake Forest. This will probably be a pretty high-scoring game. Both offenses can move it. Syracuse is one of the top in the country. Statistically in offense, Wake Forest, they're kind of in and out in the stats, but they can put it up at any time. But that being said, I think Syracuse should win, but that'll be a fun game to watch. Texas A&M against Auburn. A&M got upset last week against Mississippi State. Auburn had a bye. Both teams are looking to become bowl eligible. Honestly, this game are about even. A&M has one of the top running backs in the country, and Travion Williams. Kellen Mond at quarterback's pretty good. Auburn, Jarrett Stidham, I think he should have stayed at Baylor. I don't think he fits that Auburn offense. Let's be real. Auburn, when they're on their game in terms of for national championships, it's when they have a running quarterback. Nick Marshall a few years ago, Cam Newton. I think there's somebody in between. I'm probably forgetting. So I don't know what Gus Malzahn is doing there. I think probably his ego is getting in the way personally, but whatever. That being said, because it's in Auburn, I'm actually going to go with Auburn to win, but that'll be a good one. There's a lot of, honestly, all the games this week are close. Even like the MAC games and stuff, they're all like even. South Carolina taking on Ole Miss. This should be decent. South Carolina, they won last week against Tennessee. They have a good enough team to hold on against Ole Miss, but Ole Miss's offense, Jordan Ta'amu, quarterback, is great. They're one of the tops in the country. Scotty Phillips. They had a trio at wide receiver, which all 3 could be first-round picks. I think DK Metcalf is the one that's out for the season, but they still have 2 awesome receivers and a running back that'll get over 1,000 on the seat in a couple of games, if not this game. So I think Ole Miss ends up actually winning. Rutgers in Wisconsin. Wisconsin, they're coming off of a loss. They got killed by Northwestern. I think they bounce back. Rutgers is terrible. In Wisconsin, Jonathan Taylor, he was held below 100 for the first time last week, this year anyway, and I think he bounced back in a big way. He might go for 200 against Rutgers. Michigan State, Maryland. This is pretty even, man. Michigan State, their quarterback Brian Lewerke was out. Their freshman backup is a guy named Rocky Lombardi. I mean, he's not related to Vince Lombardi, but it's still a pretty damn good name. Maryland's kind of been up and down. They're slightly more consistent this year than they were last year. Their running game is phenomenal. Michigan State's run defense is, I think, number 1 in the country. So this is a pretty good matchup. I think I gave the edge to Maryland. It's in Maryland. Michigan State, they can kind of move it on offense, but now if their quarterback's hurt and their wide receiver Felton Davis III is out, I think Maryland probably gets this game, so I'm going with Maryland there. Oklahoma State Cowboys and the Baylor Bears. Oklahoma State coming off a huge win over Texas, which I called. Baylor's coming off of a huge not win against West Virginia. They got pummeled. I think Baylor will bounce back. This should be a pretty good game, but I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. I think they found something. Taylor Cornelius had a great game at quarterback. Justice Hill kind of made his way back a little bit. He didn't get 100. He got 92, but he still had a nice game. Baylor, I expect to bounce back, make this competitive, but I think Oklahoma State edges them. But this should be pretty... I could see it being a pretty high-scoring game. It'll be fun. Iowa State and Kansas. Iowa State coming off they're on a 3-game winning streak. beating some really good teams. They beat Texas Tech last week. Kansas, they beat TCU last week. They actually lead the nation, or one of the tops in the nation in forcing turnovers and turnover margin. They're like the top 2, I think. This will be pretty even. Kansas can move it a little bit on offense. They have a really good running back in Puka Williams Jr. But all that being said, I think Iowa State should beat them. All right, Air Force and Army. It's the triple option against the triple option. The only edge I got here is 2. Well, there's 2. One is at Army, and Army did. I mean, they're a strong team. They've only lost 2, and one of them was in overtime to Oklahoma, and their other loss was to Duke, who's actually a pretty decent like ACC school. So that being said, I think Army should win, but that'll be. I mean, both teams, like I said, they run the triple option. If you like running, you should watch that game. Air Force does pass it slightly more than the normal triple option teams, but that's not saying a lot. Normal triple option teams pass it like 5 to 8 times a game, and Air Force might put it up like 15 times. So I think Army ends up with that. Memphis and East Carolina. Memphis is a kind of, ever since the UCF loss, Darrell Henderson, I think he's kind of hurt, but he'll probably be okay. Even if not, Brady White's a really good quarterback for Memphis. They have the offense there and the culture. Even though it's at East Carolina, and East Carolina gave UCF a run for their money, but I think Memphis should win. Central Michigan and Eastern Michigan. Central Michigan is just not very good this year. Eastern Michigan, they're only 4-5, but there's a bunch of games they should have won, and I think Eastern Michigan should be able to come out with this one. I don't really see it being a blowout, mainly because like Central Michigan is bad, but Eastern Michigan is not that good to get a blowout. I mean, they could, and 31-10 would be kind of a blowout, but either way, even if it's close, I think Eastern Michigan gets it done in the end, no matter what. Georgia Tech, North Carolina. Georgia Tech, they rolled over Virginia Tech last week. Their triple option, they got it going. Tobias Oliver at quarterback had 40 carries last week for 215. North Carolina's 1-6, but they probably should have a few more wins. They give everybody a run for their money. All that being said, I think Georgia Tech wins. I don't know that North Carolina can necessarily stop them. Texas State and Georgia State. Texas State actually beat New Mexico State last week. Georgia State, they went back and forth with Coastal Carolina. They lost in a shootout, 37-34. Georgia State, Dan Ellington, he's a really good quarterback. He can run and throw really well. Penny Hart, one of the best receivers you guys have never heard of. Georgia State, I think, should win that one. San Jose State, they got off the schneid. They finally won their first game last week. Wyoming had a surprising win against Colorado State. They put up a bunch of points. Their quarterback, Sean Chambers, came in as a freshman and did really well, running, throwing a little bit. They do have one of the nation's leading rushers, and Nico Evans, I think, is actually like fifth or something in the nation. He's only 21 yards away from 1,000, so his next carry probably will get him over 1,000. I think Wyoming should win. San Jose State, even though they're 1-7, early in the year they were pretty terrible, not competitive. Later on, they'd become more competitive. They clearly won last week, but I think Wyoming should win this game. South Alabama and Arkansas State. South Alabama, they're kind of Arkansas State's a little bit down, but they're still 4-4. They have Justice Hanson at quarterback, one of the best in a group of 5. He could throw it around, run it a little bit, but definitely throw it around. I think Arkansas State, they coming off a shootout loss to Louisiana Lafayette. The Raging Cajuns won 47-43, so Arkansas State can clearly put up the points. So I think Arkansas State does in that game. Georgia Southern, they're 7-1, 4-0 in the Sun Belt. Huge victory against Appalachian State. They demolished them 34-14. They forced 5 turnovers. Georgia Southern is number 1 in the country in turnover margin. They take on Louisiana Monroe, who's a little bit of a surprise. They're 4-4. They're fighting for a bowl game. They're fighting for their side of the Sun Belt. And they're actually tied for number 1 in the Sun Belt on their side right now. But all that, Georgia Southern, man, they're like the number 3 rushing team in the country. They're forcing all kinds of turnovers. ULM Monroe has a decent offense. They got a good chance. Quarterback Caleb Evans is really good, but Georgia Southern is just, they're kind of unstoppable at the moment anyway. And you beat Appalachian State like that. Personally, I think Georgia Southern should have become ranked, especially with all the ranked teams that lost last week. So I think Georgia Southern should win. Marshall and Southern Miss. Southern Miss, they lost to Charlotte. Charlotte's actually looking decent. They're a couple wins away from bowl. Southern Miss, Jack Abraham is still a really good passing quarterback, but Marshall just seems to be a really good team. They're 5-2. They're 1 win away from bowl eligibility. They kind of, their offense is good, their defense is good. I think Marshall should come away with that. But it could be interesting if Jack Abraham can get his game going, passing wise. Southern Miss, they have a real chance in that. But I think Marshall wins. Georgia and Kentucky. Georgia's coming off a huge victory against rival Florida. Kentucky, I don't know how they keep winning. They won with no time left on an untimed play with a touchdown to beat Missouri 15-14. I think finally it should end now. Kentucky, you're not that good. I'm sorry. Their defense is fine. Statistically, they're like third in the nation, top 3, whatever. Georgia Tech's gonna kill you. I said that about Missouri, but Georgia Bulldogs, they are actually good. Georgia, they're gonna demolish them. West Virginia, Texas. This will be fun. This will be a shootout. Texas proved they're not for real, in my opinion. I mean, they're better than they have been probably since 2009 when they played for the national championship. But they have a good quarterback. Sam Ehlinger is great. Will Greer is awesome for West Virginia. This will be a really fun game to watch. I expect it to be high scoring, sort of like what Texas and Oklahoma State was last week. I expect it to be at least in the 30s. But that being said, I think I went with, I don't remember who I went with in this one. I picked Texas. It's at Texas. Will Greer, he scares me though. Like, as fun as he is to watch, he scares the crap out. He could throw 3 interceptions any time. He could throw 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, whatever. That's part of what scares me. If I will say this, if Will Greer is on his game and not turning it over, West Virginia wins. I don't trust him to do that, so I'm picking Texas, but this will be really fun. All right, Iowa and Purdue. Iowa's coming off a late loss. They almost beat Penn State without actually doing anything on offense. They had a trick field goal play for a touchdown. They had an interception return for the touchdown. They had 2 safeties. How the fuck do you get 2 safeties? I don't know. They did. And they lost. They still put up 24 points with all that. Purdue, David Blau. What's that name? That name of the game is David Blau. He threw 3 interceptions last week. They lost by 10 to Michigan State. I think Purdue will bounce back in terms of, I think David Blau will be fine, but I think Iowa ends up winning. Iowa's, Purdue's good, but Iowa, they play good defense. They figure out ways to win somehow, or almost win. That game against Penn State proved that even though they didn't win, they only lost by 6 without their offense doing anything actually, so I think Iowa wins. Liberty and UMass. UMass coming off a nice win against UConn. Liberty, they're in a transition phase right now. They're only 2 games away from bowl eligibility, which normally they wouldn't be eligible for because they're in their transitional year. But if they get to 6 wins and there are not enough bowl eligible teams, they can. And I think this is the next game that goes to it. I think Liberty should win this game. It'll be a good game now, I think, because UMass, they can throw it around as well. But Liberty, I think, is a little more, because UMass had a good running back in Marquise Young. They kind of go back and forth with their quarterbacks between Andrew Ford and Ross Comas. So they had the potential to put it up. But Liberty, Stephen Calver, Antonio Guinea, Golden Net wide receiver. I think Liberty wins. UTEP and Rice. So UTEP is on a 19-game losing streak. They've been really competitive their last few games. They probably should have at least 1 win by now. Rice, they do only have 1 win, and they look terrible. I'm actually going with UTEP. I think UTEP stops their losing streak, and they get their win over Rice. Tulane against USF. Tulane's coming off a decent kind of ho-hum victory. They beat Tulsa 24-17. USF lost their first game of the year against Houston. They couldn't stop in my opinion, the Heisman quarterback in De'Aaron King at Houston, but they did put up 36 points. They have a good running game, both with Jordan Cronkite and Ford. I think USF should bounce back in this game. Tulane has a tricky option, a tricky offense kind of. It's sort of a triple option. It's mostly triple option, but they tend to pass more, even a little bit more, maybe 15 to 20 attempts. That being said, I think USF should bounce back in a pretty big way, and I think they win. USF wins. Navy and Cincinnati. Cincinnati, they won in overtime last week. Navy, they're 2-6. Unfortunately, they're probably not going to make a bowl, which they normally do. They've made like 16 of the last 18 years or something crazy like that. They have the triple option. It's really hard to stop, but Cincinnati's really actually is pretty good this year. So I think Cincinnati wins with that, but I would say they're on a little bit of an upset alert just because the triple option is always tough. Louisiana Raging Cajuns and Troy. This will be good. Louisiana coming off a really nice win against Arkansas State. They put up 47 points. Troy is coming off a nice win last week. Troy is one of the better teams in the Sun Belt. This will be a good game. It should be pretty even back and forth, but I'll give the edge to Troy. They had the experience in these big games, at least in terms of the Sun Belt. But they have a good running back in B.J. Smith, who's one of the better ones, but Louisiana has Trey Ragus at running back as well. So this will be even. I'll give the edge to Troy, which should be a pretty exciting, probably high scoring, probably in the 30s kind of game. Florida State and NC State. Florida State got killed by Clemson. NC State, they lost 51-41 to Syracuse. NC's kind of what I thought they were. Everybody's touting them. They lost their last 2 games. They're decent. They can have a good offense. Ryan Finley is a good quarterback. Kelvin Harmon's a really good receiver. Florida State, DeAndre Fraceball, you guys know how I feel. He's inconsistent at best. It's at NC State, and I think it'll probably be a pretty decent game. I think Florida State, they're probably angry how they lost last week, but they're not that good. So NC State, I think, probably edges them. Kansas State and TCU. TCU lost to Kansas last week. Kansas State, they got killed by Oklahoma, but who really hasn't other than maybe Army? This will be a pretty good game. Kansas State, they always play team stuff. TCU's not that great this year. They're both about even right now in terms of how they're playing. They're both 3-5, 1-4 in the Big 12. The edge, I'm going to go to TCU. I think they kind of bounce back. I think their quarterback play will be slightly better. Even though Sean Robinson and Michael Collins, they kind of go back and forth, it's still better than what Kansas State's doing. Kansas State does have a really good running back, though, in Alex Barnes. So maybe he goes off again. He's like 184 yards from 1,000, which he could actually get in this game. But I think TCU edges them. This will be like a 27-24 kind of game. I can see that. Maybe 23-20, something 24-22, I don't know, something like that. Minnesota Golden Gophers and the Illinois Fighting Illini. Minnesota coming off a decent win against Indiana. Illinois, they got pummeled by Maryland, but they did put up 33 points. They have a decent running game. This is kind of an even game to me. I think I ended up giving the edge to Minnesota. But, yeah, so honestly, both teams are kind of the same. Minnesota, they had a freshman quarterback come in last week and actually did pretty well. I think he put up like 300 yards and 3 touchdowns or something like that. Tyler Johnson at wide receiver, one of the tops in the nation. So I think Minnesota should win that one. All right, Penn State and Michigan. This looks good on paper, but I'm not sold on really either one of these teams. Penn State, Trace McSorley is a good quarterback. Shea Patterson from Michigan is decent. I don't know who I actually picked in this one. Probably, yeah. So I went with Penn State. Miles Sanders, a really good running back. Their offense is better at Penn State. Michigan's defense is one of the best in the country, but they have a really good running back in Karan Higdon. They have potential at offense, but they're kind of in and out. Penn State, I trust more just they're more consistently overall. I think Penn State actually goes to Michigan and gets the win here. This is one of the games of the day, though. I expect it to be pretty close, to be a good game, and I think Penn State comes out with it. All right, Boston College and Virginia Tech. Boston College, A.J. Dillon, he came back last week against Miami, ran for, I think, 149 yards, 130, something like that. Ran for a bunch of yards against a pretty good defense in Miami. Virginia Tech, they couldn't. I think Georgia Tech is still running right now on them. That being said, Ryan Williams has played well at quarterback for Virginia Tech in place of Josh Jackson. I think I went with Virginia Tech in this one. This should be a nice. I'm just filling this out here because she just put Virginia. I think Virginia Tech, they bounce back and should win. Missouri taking on Florida. Florida's coming off they kept it close. They were only down by 6 into the fourth quarter against Georgia, but then they lost. Missouri lost the last second to Kentucky. It's in Florida. The Florida defense is really, really good. I expect Florida to bounce back, and they should be able to beat Missouri. So Florida wins that. Utah against Arizona State. Arizona State and Kill Harry, man, he's the wide receiver for Arizona. He had an amazing game against USC as Arizona State beat USC, and Kill Harry had a one-handed catch that rivals anything Odell Beckham Jr. has ever done. He had a punt return, 92-yard punt return for a touchdown, which was awesome. Utah, though, they've been really strong, man. They've pretty much blown out their last 4 games. They're 4 people. It's at Arizona State. This will be an interesting to watch. I'm just going to pay attention to it anyway. But it'll be a good game, and I'm going to go with Utah. Utah, they're consistent as hell. Usually are, so I think Utah wins. Charlotte and Tennessee, you know what? Charlotte's in the CUSA. They're actually 4-4. It's only their second year in the FBS. They're 2 wins away from bowl eligibility. They got to go to Tennessee. Tennessee, yes, they're an SEC team. They're inconsistent as hell. I wanted to go with Charlotte. I'm going to pick Tennessee. I think Tennessee's slightly better than they were last year. They're better than they were in the beginning of this season. I think Tennessee ends up winning. But I'm going to put them on a little bit of an upset alert. I know you guys aren't actually paying attention to what Charlotte has been doing. But Tennessee fans, you might be in for a surprise. I could have egg all over my face at the end of this weekend. Maybe Tennessee destroys them. But I think Tennessee should at least win. Alright, Alcorn State 1AA team taking on New Mexico State. Alcorn State's actually a decent 1AA team. New Mexico State sucks. That being said, I'm still going to go with New Mexico State. Don't be surprised if Alcorn State wins, though. I almost wanted to pick them as well, but New Mexico State, decent quarterback in Josh Atkins. They got some players. I think they should win. Alright, one of the games of the day, in my opinion, Appalachian State against Coastal Carolina. Both have 5 wins. Coastal Carolina's in their second season as a FBS team, and they've been really good on offense, the running game especially. Appalachian State, even though they lost last week to Georgia Southern, they still have one of the best teams in a group of 5, in my opinion. Statistically, they're in the top 10 to 20 in pretty much all the offense and defensive categories. This was hard for me to pick. It's on the teal field, but you guys should look up Coastal Carolina's field. If anybody's seen Boise State's blue field, Coastal Carolina has a teal field. It's freaking awesome. I'm giving you as Appalachian State. They have the experience, slightly more experience. Appalachian State hasn't been in 1A for that long themselves, but they have a little more experience. I think they have the better overall team, and I think they bounce back from their loss last week, and I think Appalachian State should win, but that'll be a great game. I want to watch that. Houston and SMU. Houston has one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Derek King against USF last week, passed for 420 and 5 touchdowns, ran for 135 and 2 more touchdowns. To me, he's a Heisman candidate for sure. You fuckers at ESPN are like, oh, is it too late for the Heisman? Y'all haven't voted yet. Put him up there. Fuck that. Dude, SMU almost beat Cincinnati, but this is Houston. Houston's got one of the best offenses in the country overall. I think they roll, and they roll big. Houston gets this. UConn and Tulsa. Both are bad, but UConn has the better quarterback in David Pendle, who should get over 1,000 yards rushing by the end of this year. Maybe this game he's like 200 yards away, 216 away from it. Tulsa just sucks. UConn, I think UConn should win. Duke and Miami, this will be even. Miami's on a 2-game losing streak, though. It'll be at Miami. I think Miami's just going to be mad. Duke is a good team. They have a good quarterback in Daniel Jones. He's really consistently good. But I think the talent with Miami and their anger and whatever, the emotion, I think they bounce back. I think Miami wins. Notre Dame at Northwestern. Notre Dame, look at Notre Dame's schedule their last 4 games. Hell, look at their whole schedule. They barely beat Ball State. They barely beat Vanderbilt. They barely beat, I can't remember who, Pitt. Like, the mediocre teams at best. They're struggling to get by. Northwestern just beat Wisconsin. They have a good quarterback in Clayton Thorson. Ian Book has been great at quarterback for Notre Dame. I will say that. And running back Dexter Williams. They're both really good. I'm giving the edge to Northwestern. This will be a big upset. You guys will be like, oh, we're Northwestern, we're dumb. But yeah, I think Northwestern wins. I know I'll probably be wrong, but I believe in Northwestern at least to get this. It's more so I don't believe in Notre Dame. And even if Notre Dame wins this, they still got to play Florida State, Syracuse, USC, all kind of mediocre teams. But they're right there with Notre Dame. Let's be real. Notre Dame's a mediocre team. All right. So Northwestern upset. I'm calling it. Louisiana Tech taking on Mississippi State. I'm wanting to go with Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech has a good CUSA team. You know, the past few years they played the SEC teams tough. Mississippi State, they are so inconsistent at quarterback on their team. Fitzgerald's a good running quarterback, but 2 weeks ago he threw 4 interceptions. Then last week he threw 2 touchdowns, no picks, ran for a bunch of yards. This is one of those games where it's the SEC talent, whatever comes through. I really want to pick Louisiana Tech. I think Mississippi State should win, but this will be closer than any of you guys think. Mississippi State, you're on upset alert for sure. All right, UCLA taking on Oregon. UCLA's played better the last few games. Oregon, I don't know what's wrong with them. They got killed by Arizona after losing the week before to Washington State. They should bounce back. I think Oregon should win this one. They're facing their old coach in Chip Kelly. It's in Oregon. Night game in Autzen Stadium. I think Oregon wins. All right, this Shula Bowl between Florida Atlantic and Florida International. Florida Atlantic they're having a down year. They're 3-5. They're a couple games out of even winning a bowl. Devin Singletary, running back, is great, but their quarterback play is kind of iffy right now. Florida National, they're actually bowl eligible. They're 6-2. They're 4-0 in CUSA. James Morgan at quarterback. He's a transfer from Bowling Green. He's doing really, really good things there. This will probably be an even game. It's a rivalry. Florida Atlantic, record-wise, isn't good, but they still have the talent. That being said, I'm going to go with FIU. I think FIU has it together this year, and I think they should win. All right, UTSA facing UAB. Dude, UAB, they hit their 3rd shutout this season. They're one of the best defenses in the country. I don't care who you are. I've said this over and over. I don't care. If you get 3 shutouts in a year, you're a good defense. And people are like, oh, it's the competition. Like, bitch, UTSA is in the same competition. If it was that easy, they would have 3 shutouts too. Like, it's not easy. UAB 7-1. They're 5-0. I think they keep going. Spencer Brown, one of the better running backs in the group of 5, at least in the USA. AJ Early, he's a manager. He's a game manager, a quarterback. He can make plays on the ground a little bit, but he won't screw him over. I think UAB should win. The game of the day probably where College Game Day is going to be Alabama and LSU. It's at LSU. It's in Baton Rouge at night. That doesn't matter. Alabama's going to cream them. Tua Tagovailoa is great at quarterback. LSU's got a good defense. Their quarterback play, it's funny. LSU quarterback play is good for them this year, and it's mediocre. Like, that's how shit they've been at quarterback for 15 years, basically. They have a good running back, Nick Brossette. But I can't go against Alabama. I think Alabama should win. Maybe not cream them, but I think Alabama wins pretty, like by 14 to 17, something like that. All right, Oklahoma, Texas Tech. I'm interested in this because I think it very well could be high scoring. Oklahoma, Kyler Murray, he's a Heisman quarterback for sure. Texas Tech, Alan Bowman, he's a freshman quarterback, but he's been playing really well when he's played. He missed a few games because of a partially collapsed lung, but when he's in there, he tosses it around like Texas Tech quarterbacks do. It's at Texas Tech. It's a night game in Lubbock. Weird place to play. Weird things happen down there. That being said, I think Oklahoma comes out with the win, but this will be fun. I'm interested in that. That should be high scoring. At least by one team, it should be high scoring, and I expect it to be. It very well could be like in the 40s or something, but it might be that Oklahoma gets like 50 something, and then Texas Tech it could be like 56 to 35, something like that. Kind of close early, and then Oklahoma goes away with it. All right, Stanford and Washington. Both teams. Stanford got beat by a really good Washington State team at the last second. They only lost 41 to 38. Washington, they got upset by Cal. They lost 12 to 10. Their offense looked terrible. Jake Browning looked pretty bad, and he's normally pretty good at quarterback. Stanford, KJ Costello has been good this year at quarterback. JJ Arcega-Whiteside's a good wide receiver / tight end. He started his career there as a tight end, but he went to wide receiver. I think Stanford, it should be good. Washington State's got a good team. They'll bounce back. It's in Washington, but I think Stanford wins. I think Stanford might be a little bit better right now. USC and Oregon State. USC just lost to Arizona State. They put in their quarterback Jack Seegers as a freshman, and because JT Daniels sucks. Oregon State, they came all the way. They were down 31 to 3 against Colorado and came back to win last week in overtime. Jamar Jefferson, he's top 4 in the nation rushing. He's got 1,000 yards rushing already. That'll be hard for USC to stop. It's in Corvallis. It's in Oregon State. I kind of wanted to go with Oregon State, but I think USC probably bounces back. But that'll be interesting. I'd keep my eye on that one. BYU and Boise State. Boise State, Brett Ripien had 5 touchdown passes for Boise State. Their offense is awesome. BYU, they lost 7-6 to Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois is usually a good MAC team. They'll make a bowl. They might win the MAC. Who knows? But come on, BYU. You fucking beat Wisconsin, and you can't put up 7 points or 8 points, whatever you needed to win. I think Boise State. It's at Boise. It's on the blue field. They got a good running back in Alexander Madison as well. Boise State. I think Boise State should win. All right, San Diego State and New Mexico. San Diego State they got kind of upset by Nevada. Nevada looks to be a decent team this year. San Diego State, they actually showed they could pass it last week. New Mexico, they got trounced by Utah State, but who hasn't? Utah State, they're like one of the top scoring offenses in the nation. Top 3, top 2, something like that. New Mexico should bounce back. They can put up points. This will be interesting, but I'm going to go with San Diego State. I think they bounce back. Fresno State and UNLV. UNLV lost to a previously they lost to San Jose State, who hadn't won a game. Fresno State just killed Hawaii. They have one of the best teams in the group of 5, period. They're 7-1, 4-0 overall. Marcus McMahon at quarterback. Y'all don't know about him, but he's really, really good. UNLV has a good quarterback or running back in Lexington Thomas. But that's kind of all they have. Fresno State's got a good quarterback. Keyshawn Johnson at wide receiver is really good. They got some decent running game. They kind of don't really have a standard at running back, but it doesn't matter. McMarion, he does what they need. So I think Fresno State should win pretty easily. Cal and Washington State. This might be interesting. Cal's coming off a nice upset against Washington, but Washington State leads the nation in passing. Gardner Minshew, I've been telling y'all about him all year. He was awesome last week, 40 to 50. I think they continue that. They should beat Cal. Cal's sneaky. Their defense is usually decent, but their offense can't keep up with Washington State. So even if their defense can hold Washington State down to like 24 points, Cal can't put up. They can't even put up 14 points. So I think Washington State wins. In the last game, this should be high scoring. Utah State just got ranked. They got to go to Hawaii. I've been touting up Hawaii. They lost their last 3 games. Cole McDonald still is tied for the National League with 30 touchdown passes. Utah State, Jordan Love at quarterback. He's awesome. Their offense is great. Their scoring offense is great. This will be fun. I'm looking for this one. This should be a shootout. That being said, I think Utah State wins. They seem to have a really, really good team this year. I think so Utah State wins, but I mean, this game could be like both teams at 50. At the very least, Hawaii should put up 300 to 400 passing yards. Utah State, I mean, both teams might put up like, about 500 yards each, something like that. So those are my Saturday previews. Go check out all of our other videos. Peace.